Hello guys and welcome to my new Mythic Plus video, and I do apologize for the lack of videos in the last couple of days. I have been, for the last 4 or so days, pushing Mythic Plus, and this video is going to be all about my experiences because quite frankly I haven't been pushing for the last 2 or 3 months, and I decided to try and get the Mythic Plus title that Blizzard introduced in 9.1.5 in terms of getting the 0.1 top % Mythic Plus score. Over the last 4 days I have done a lot of pookies, semi-pookies, guild kind of pookies, and I wanted to make a video about the tips and tricks of maintaining a group, finding a group, trying to find success in completing your Mythic Plus dungeons regardless of what key you're going to be doing. I feel there's going to be a lot of people who want to improve their score, maybe go for the title. Whether you get it or not, it's all part of the journey, and I really want to know your opinions about this. Leave a comment below if you would like to see a series of videos where I document my day-to-day experiences in terms of doing tyrannical keys, fortified keys, the poke keys, and how I go about my day-to-day pushing. If that's something that might interest you, let me know guys, and I might do a series like this in the near future. So this is the actual rating cutoff point made by Rated.io. Now keep in mind there is no real information about how Blizzard is going to determine who participated in a key or how they're going to use this data, but this is a very, I would say, a decent guesstimate of what rating you would need to get that title. For Horde in EU, you can see it here, you're probably gonna need 27,800, which is really high in my opinion. Alliance side has a lot less. I don't know how Blizzard is gonna handle people transferring from Horde to Alliance to get the score, so there is a lot of nice information here in terms of what score you should aim for. Again, Season 2 still has a lot of time left, so you still have time to make a group to try and push and just go through the Mythic Plus journey, because believe me, I'm not a big Mythic Plus pusher, but I've had a blast in the last couple of days trying to get those keys, trying to improve my score, and it kind of made me play the game a bit more. Now, if you go to the US, you'll see there's a different score altogether. It's a little bit lower in terms of Horde. So it really depends on the region and faction you're in, and this is gonna tie into the next point in terms of pushing your own key, making your own group, meta and factions. My experience so far in terms of pugging, now I tried to get a friend or a person, something like a tank. I play a healer, I play a Resto Shaman, and I know that is an extremely meta healer. So there is a reason I picked the Resto Shaman, because in my honest opinion, carrying Resto Shaman is one of the easiest healers to push keys, especially pug groups, because you don't have to maintain your cooldowns, or your cooldown allotment is a lot simpler than something like a Holy Paladin or a Ventier Holy Paladin. Don't get me wrong, in an organized group, Ventier Holy Paladin is probably better, but I do think that Resto Shaman is right up there. So I play a meta class, and I know the comments already, they're gonna be like, yeah, you play Resto Shaman, it's always easy to get invited and stuff like that, and that is true. That is true in high-end Mythic Plus groups. Playing a meta class in poke scenarios is going to give you a big advantage. There's no sugarcoating this. This is just the genuine truth. I know for a fact when other people are making groups and pushing keys, and you might be a Mistweaver Monk or a Resto Druid who has more than enough score, more than enough keys done, you apply to a group, you have to be aware of the fact that there's probably about 3 other Resto Shamans and 3 other Holy Paladins who also applied. The group leader is probably going to pick the meta healer over you, even if you're qualified for that key. So if you're playing a non-meta class, something like a Mistweaver Monk, Survival Hunter, Feral Druid, you're always going to have a harder time, which means you have to have either higher gear plus IO score to get invited, and all of a sudden you're going to be doing keys that are probably below your own level unless you push your own key. Now for a lot of people this is kind of really obvious, but pushing your own key as a non-meta class is going to be the only way to get invited in this, because believe me, in high-end Mythic Plus keys, people are very picky in terms of what they're going to pick, because they want to have the highest chance of success, and the highest chance of success is picking classes that are known to be good. For example, I don't enjoy 9.1.5 in terms of class changes. The class changes in this patch have been brutal. They just kinda solidified the whole Frost Mage, Windwalker Monk meta. Most of the keys out there will have some Frost Mage or Windwalker Monk in terms of their group composition. So all of a sudden it leaves one DPS spot open, which can honestly be anything. Sub-Rogue is pretty popular in really high keys, but you can have a balanced Druid. And in terms of tanks, you can pretty much play any combination of tanks, with Guardian just edging out in popularity at this given point. But tank balance is honestly the best it's ever been. And in terms of healers, Holy Paladin Ventier, Kyrian Resto Shaman are one of the most picked choices. You can still do it with other healers, but they're not considered as meta as the two that I've mentioned. On top of that, picking the right faction is also very important. If you're playing in EU, you're gonna have a much higher possibility of finding a group if you're playing Horde. Horde just has more high-end players in terms of Mythic Plus, in terms of raiding, in terms of finding a guild, getting better gear, getting domination gear, and going and pushing your Mythic Plus keys. So if you really want the highest chance of success in terms of getting invited to keys, playing meta class, playing Horde in something like EU, playing a more high represented faction, and pushing your own key is going to be one of the best ways to get that rating. Now, once you're doing a dungeon, one of the best ways to actually find a proper push group is going to be very simple. There's no easy solution for this, and I know the video might be long to just explain a pretty obvious thing, but adding people to your group is going to be one of the most key ways of finding a solid push group that you can do throughout the week, throughout the different affixes and things like that. So add-ons like friends group is going to be really, really important. Honestly, it just sorts your friend group. So all of a sudden you might add a person because, or a tank or a DPS from a group that thought was really good. You can sort them by saying, hey, this is a tank, this is a healer, this is a DPS, and then you can just basically invite them on your next key. I know it's very simple, but this is going to be one of the best ways to do it, and this is the way that I found 2 or 3 people that I was consistently pushing for the last 4 days. Now, in terms of other things like WeakAuras, and there's a lot of tools out there that are going to help you in order to push, and that is going to be Wago. Wago is, if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. This is going to allow you to share WeakAuras. If you're not using WeakAuras, you are really kind of crippling yourself, because WeakAuras do give you a massive advantage. So you can go to Wago, you can go to WeakAuras, you can go to Shadowlands, and you can basically sort to Shadowlands dungeons. Now, some of the top WeakAuras are going to be here right off the bat. Like, a lot of the popular ones are going to be here. The ones that I really recommend is going to be Super Secret Shadowlands Dungeon Pack by Clausies. This guy does insane WeakAuras, and this is also going to help you have audio cues with the help of a few other add-ons, and maybe if you use DBM and things like that. So if you want audio cues like these,
trap.
I also made a video about how to set it up using the different WeakAuras, different add-ons, DBM and things like that. You can check out the video. Everything's going to be in the description below. Make sure to check it out. Other WeakAuras that I feel are almost broken. There is multiple versions of the Mist of Tyrannocide Maze, which basically gives you the right path after a certain number of rooms, depending. So if you're a healer and you consistently have to go around and, you know, find the right path, this is gonna save you a bunch of time. Pretty much a must-have. Simple WeakAuras like this, honestly, this is General Kyle from Sanguine Death Last Boss when it's going to rush you so you can dodge it. Super, super nice to have. Super simple. I consider this to be mandatory. Things like showing inspiring on nameplates. A lot of WeakAuras are gonna give you small advantages that are going to add up, and it's going to help you to push that key. Outside of WeakAuras, there's another add-on when you're applying to groups, and that's going to be pre-made group filter. Honestly, a pretty insane add-on that lets you specify when you're looking for a group, lets you see the composition of the group that you're applying to, see the comp that they have, see the classes that they have, and this is going to really help you to filter. You know, if you're a healer, you don't want to join a group that already has a healer in it. Pretty much a mandatory add-on in my opinion, because it simplifies a lot of the searching, especially if you're poking keys. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the route. And a lot of the times people don't really care about the route. They just let the tank handle it. And I feel that is not always the best way to go. So if you're doing a high key, I feel it's very important to go on voice communication as well. So things like Discord, and I don't feel it's mandatory, but if you find a consistent group going on Discord, finding, you know, call outs and who's going to stun, who's going to interrupt is quite important. But you need to have Mythic Dungeon tools, and this is pretty much the most popular add-on out there in terms of Mythic Plus pushing. It is just insane. But what if you don't have a route? What if you don't know what's going on? There is an awesome website, Keystone Guru. Honestly, it's something that I found very, very recently, and this really helps out. So you can just click on Discover Routes, and then you can see a screen full of all the dungeons. And let's say I'm gonna do Halls of Atonement this week, it's Tyrannical week, I'm gonna try and find a route. Now you can sort it by popular routes, which is not always the best because you can see these are fortified. I'm gonna sort by popular routes by current affixes, and you can see the first one here, Halls of Atonement. This is going to be Tyrannical Week. I'm gonna click on it, and now you have the whole window of what I want to pull, how I want to pull it. You can click on, okay, this is the first pack. It's gonna go right side, it's gonna do this pack, it's gonna do this. It's not always going to be the best, it's not always going to be the most optimal, but you can check out different routes, popular routes, and you can kind of follow this, and all of a sudden you'll be like, again, I have to stress this. One of the best ways to push keys, or in my opinion, try and get better, is failure. I know it sounds ridiculous, but for a given week, whether it's tyrannical or fortified, you're going to fail. If you're doing high keys, a lot of the times one fail, key is over. The only thing you can do about that is learn from those mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes. There are plenty of times there groups are going to be disbanding. The only thing you can do is learn. Maybe you pull too many mobs and your group couldn't handle it. Maybe you pull too little mobs and your group could have handled more mobs. You can learn based on the affixes, and don't be afraid to fail, because you will. Nobody is perfect. The only reason you see these people who are pushing 27, 28, 29 keys is because they play non-stop and they learn from their mistakes. So learning the route, learning what your composition can do, Keystone Guru, really cool, definitely a must check out. Now, one of the last things is learning your class and knowing what talents, what soul binds, what is popular for your class in terms of pushing keys. And I have used this site, Sub Creation, honestly one of the best sites out there in terms of determining what classes are strong right now, what talent builds you should be running. This is looking at all affixes, not just the current affixes. So this kind of ranks tanks, healers, DPS based on the success of keys and things like that. You don't really have to focus on that, but if you're playing like a Resto Shaman like myself, I'm gonna click on Resto Shaman and I can see all of a sudden, okay, this is a pretty popular talent build. Some people are running Spirit Wolf, some people are running Static Charge, some people are running Nature's Guardian or Graceful Spirit, depending if they need Spirit Walker's Grace more often. And then you'll see that all of a sudden, okay, I need to be Kyrian, because Kyrian Raging Vesper Vortex is the only way to go in high-end Mythic Plus. If you're not Kyrian Resto Shaman, you're pretty much trolling. You can see that Brawn, or again Mechanicos with Brawn, is a really popular option. This is a really nice soulbind tree. I'm gonna go with this. You can see the Conduit build. You can even see the Shard build that people are running. And now you're ready with the gear, with the talents, with the soulbinds and the Covenant. You're ready to push your character, because you know if these people were able to do a 26, 27 with this talent build, you'll probably can do or use this talent build as well for your keys. And the last thing is going to be my Macros and Keybinds, and this is going to be more specific to my Shaman, because I've been pushing with my Resto Shaman a lot, and honestly there's quite a few tips and tricks you can do, especially if you're playing Resto Shaman. So first of all, I want to talk about, for my Kyrian guys out there who are running Brawn, this is an insane macro that I found on Wago.io, and I'm going to include this in the description. This macro right here, if you're running Brawn, you know that Brawn can be a pretty much, again, I'm using the wrong soulbind, but if you're running this, you know that Brawn, when he pops up, there is going to be issues if you need to invis. So what this macro is going to do is going to cancel your current buff of Brawn if it's active, and then it's going to use your potion for invisibility. So this is gonna allow a safe invis skip, and keep in mind guys, you need to get potions of the hidden Steer or hidden spirit, because this is going to be something that you're going to be using throughout your keys, especially in higher levels where invis skips are really somewhat mandatory, and this macro makes it a lot easier if you have Brawn. Now, focus and focus interrupts is something that I've been using for a long time, and it's really important, especially as a DPS who needs to interrupt or a Resto Shaman who needs to interrupt. I'm using Click. A lot of people might be familiar with Click because it basically allows you to make mouse over macros a lot easier. So I have this mouse over macro here, which we can go and check it out. All this is going to do is make my current target that I've selected with a specific keybind focus. So I can select this guy right here. I can click my mouse button and all of a sudden you can see a focus bar appearing here. Now, what if I want to only interrupt the focus target? This is going to be really important for a lot of people, especially if you're running Spires, guys. Those Goliath interrupts are probably the most mandatory things that you can do. So then I have a macro for Wind Shear. Now my Wind Shear macro looks like this. is going to cast Wind Shear on my if I have a focus target. So all of a sudden I can do a lot of different things, like on a Spire Ski, I can DPS, I can heal, I can attack different mobs. But if my focus target is going to be casting something, I'm gonna press Wind Shear and it's going to interrupt that focus target. And this is pretty much the most mandatory thing you can have as an interrupt player, interrupt healer, and things like that. And the last macro, and it's going to be for explosive. Explosive week is gone, but if you're watching this video during the explosive week, pretty much a mandatory thing you can do. A lot of people are using mouse over macros to kill explosives instantly without having to select and then use your ability. Instead, you mouse over with your mouse and you click that associate keybind. So you can see here I have this is called Water Shield, but this macro here that I use is going to be cast mouse over Water Shield. So what this does, if I go over myself, it's going to cast Water Shield. So I'm using the same key for Water Shield, but if I mouse over an enemy, it's going to cast Frost Shock. So if I'm going to cast or mouse over someone like an explosive orb, if I press the same key, it's going to cast, again, I can't showcase it here right now because there's no enemies around me, but it's going to cast Frost Shock. So all of a sudden, as a Resto Shaman who has a bunch of abilities, I'm reusing the same key based on where my mouse is. Friendly target, Water Shield, enemy target, explosive, and I don't have to select that target. Pretty much a lifesaver during explosive weeks, and there's a lot of mouse over macros that can help with this. And this has been my overview of my Mythic Plus tips. I know a lot of them are obvious. I know for a lot of people who are pushing high keys, there's not a lot of good value here, but I feel that people who are coming into the game or trying to get better, improve, there's a lot of websites here that are really helpful, and I'm giving out a big shout out to those websites because the people who maintain those websites, thank you so much for making the game a lot easier, a lot more fun, and improving my score. Now, let me know, guys, if you want to see that series of me doing or trying to get that rank 1 title in Mythic Plus. Let me know if you know any other tools for Mythic Plus that would be insane. Let me know. I'll include them in the description, include them in the comments. We can learn from each other. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video.